teeth in a hunger shout.
12 men cross into the same land, and they walk the same hills and eat from the same vineyards. And then they cut a cluster of grapes so heavy it has to be carried on a staff between 2 men. And 40 days later, all 12 of them come back. 10 of them tell a story about fearsome giants. 2 of them tell a story about God. So same land, same evidence, same 40 days, but they come back with 2 completely different reports. And that difference is the entire chapter. And the verse that explains the difference, the verse that holds numbers 12 and 13 together, is the verse that the narrator drops right between them. The man Moses is very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And today, we're going to sit with that and see what meekness actually is and what it does to vision. So welcome back to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eleazar, and today is our Tuesday, May 5th, 2026 reading of Numbers, chapters 12 and 13, in our ongoing Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. So 2 chapters today. Miriam and Aaron speaking against Moses and the 12 spies entering Canaan. And they're bound together by the verse in the middle that tells you everything about why the spies see what they see. Now, before we read, let's acknowledge our Father in heaven. Thank him for the prophet whose meekness was so total that the narrator had to step into the story and tell us about it. Let's thank him for the 2 faithful witnesses who saw the same land, but that the others saw and reported it differently. And thank him for the patience that healed Miriam at the door of the tent and gave Israel a second chance, even after they refused to enter. And as we read of the cloud lifting from over Miriam and the cluster of Eshcol carried on a staff and the rebellion that turned faith into fear, let's recognize that we are surrounded by the same evidence that the spies were surrounded by, and that what we see depends on whether we can see at all. So let's approach today with reverence, with thanksgiving, and with hearts open to learning. Let's do so all in Jesus' name. Now, since we don't want to read passively, we're not just checking off boxes, let's read with intention here. So a couple of questions to start us out to help focus our mind and attention on the scriptures. First, Numbers 12, verse 3 is one of the strangest sentences in the whole Pentateuch, right? The narrator actually stops all the action to tell us Moses was the meekest man on earth. So notice where exactly that verse falls in the chapter and ask why the narrator placed it where he did. What does the placement teach us about meekness? Also, the 12 spies, they see the same land for 40 days and they walk the same path and cut the same grapes. They track the difference between the report of the 10 Also, the 12 spies see the same land for 40 days. They walk the same paths, cut the same grapes. So track the difference between the report of the 10 and the report of the 2. So what do they each pay attention to first, and what do they each say about themselves? The order of the words here is going to matter. So again, pay close attention to that. And finally, the chapter ends with a description of giants, the sons of Anak, right? Men of great stature. But pay attention to the phrase the 10 use about themselves in 1333. We were in our own sight grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So the order of that sentence is pretty loaded. So as we're reading through that section, pay attention to that and then what it means based upon what's kind of illustrated around it. Okay. And so with that, let's come read together and kick it off in Numbers chapter 12. All right, so starting off here with verses 1 through 3. And Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. And they said, Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek above all men which were upon the face of the earth. So this chapter opens with a complaint disguised as a concern. I'm sure we've all experienced that with people in our lives. Miriam and Aaron, they speak against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman that he married. Now the Hebrew is Haisha HaKushit, right? The Cushite woman. Whether this is Zipporah, whom Moses married back in Exodus, or a second wife that the text doesn't name, the scholars, honestly, they've argued about it for centuries, right? But it doesn't really matter. What does matter is that the marriage is the pretext. It's not the actual issue. So watch what happens in verse 2. Hath the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses? Hath he not also spoken by us? So there it is. The marriage was the cover. The real complaint is about prophetic standing. See, Miriam is a prophetess in her own right? She leads Israel in a song at the Red Sea. Aaron is the high priest. Both have legitimate spiritual authority, and both here are arguing that their authority deserves the same standing as Moses. And that's when the narrator does this remarkable thing, right? He stops the action and he inserts a sentence that breaks all the literary rules. Now the man Moses was meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. So that verse 3, and it's placed exactly here on purpose, right at that moment, right? The moment that Moses is being attacked, the narrator tells us Moses isn't defending himself. And why? Because he is meek. So the Hebrew is anav, humble, lowly, bowed down. It's not weak, right? Sort of self-forgetfulness, right? Moses doesn't answer Miriam and Aaron in this chapter at all either. And not once. Like, he doesn't protest at all. He doesn't assert. The verse is telling us why he doesn't do those things. Because he has no inflated sense of self to defend. And that is the keystone verse of the chapter. And I'd argue in a few minutes, the keystone verse of the next chapter too. So hold on to that. Keep it in mind as we read through the rest of these two chapters, because it's very, very fitting. All right, let's move on to verses 4 through 9. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses and unto Aaron and unto Miriam, Come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in the pillar of the cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forward. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and he will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him I will speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in dark speeches. And the similitude of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. So Moses doesn't answer his accusers. So the Lord does, right? And the speed that he responds to, right? The text says that the Lord spoke suddenly. Now the Hebrew here is pitom, right? Abruptly or without warning. So he calls all three of the tabernacle, Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. The cloud descends, and the Lord himself, he adjudicates the whole dispute. And what he says is a very important statement about Moses' prophetic office. To prophets, he speaks in visions and dreams, dark, mediated, partial. But with Moses, he speaks, face to face, mouth to mouth, plainly, not in dark speeches. And the Hebrew here is peh, right? Mouth to mouth. It's the closest possible category of prophetic communication that you can get. So then he asks the question that closes the case. Wherefore then were ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the entire chapter is teaching something important about meekness. The meek don't defend themselves. They don't need to. Their whole vindication is from the Lord. Moses, he said nothing, but the Lord said everything. And that is the pattern. So the cloud lifts and we discover Miriam has been struck with leprosy, white as snow. Let's continue on here. 10 through 16. And the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam becomes leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and beheld she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out of the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterward the people removed from Hazeroth and pitched in the wilderness of Paran. So, again, Aaron sees his sister, and everything in his posture changes, all right? He turns to Moses, the brother he was just speaking against, and calls him my Lord, confesses his sin, and he pleads for Miriam, right? So what does Moses do? Well, the brother who was just attacked, the brother who said nothing in his own defense, that man whose meekness the narrator just stopped the chapter to describe, he prays for the sister who attacked him. Heal her now, O God, I beseech thee. It's a short prayer, right there in verse 13, but it's a fantastic moment. Moses doesn't lecture, and he doesn't exact terms for his intercession, right? He doesn't even pause to let her feel the weight of what she did. He just immediately prays. It's the Lord who answers, right? He requires a 7-day period of shame outside the camp. And that is the standard purification for the kind of skin condition that Miriam contracted. But healing will come. And here's a detail that is easy to miss. The people don't move on without her, right? It says that the people, they journeyed not until she was brought in whole again. So the whole camp waits a week for her. So the camp that Moses leads waits for the woman who spoke against him. The meekness of the leader is shaping the patience of his people. Now, the chapter ends, Israel moves on to the wilderness of Paran, and the very next verse opens chapter 13 with sending spies, holding meekness as a verse in your hand as we read over this, right? Because that meekness is going to be kind of important here. So let's go ahead and continue on here. And we're going to start things off. Pretty lengthy little section here, but a lot of them are short verses. We're going to do 1 through 16. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men that they may search the land of Canaan, which I give unto the children of Israel. Of every tribe of their fathers shall ye send a man, every one a ruler among them. And Moses by the commandment of the Lord sent them from the wilderness of Paran. All these men were heads of the children of Israel. And these were their names of the tribe of Reuben, Shammua the son of Zaccur. Of the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat the son of Hori. Of the tribe of Judah, Caleb the son of Jephunneh. Of the tribe of Issachar, Igal the son of Joseph. Of the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea the son of Nun. Of the tribe of Benjamin, Palti the son of Raphu. Of the tribe of Zebulun, Gadiel the son of Sodi. Of the tribe of Joseph, namely of the tribe of Manasseh, Gadi the son of Susi. Of the tribe of Dan, Amiel the son of Gemali. Of the tribe of Asher, Sether the son of Michael. Of the tribe of Naphtali, Nabi the son of Voshi. Of the tribe of Gad, Geuel the son of Maki. These are the names of the men which Moses sent to spy out of the land. And Moses called Hoshea the son of Nun, Yehoshua. So the Lord tells Moses to send men to Canaan, one man from each tribe. Every one of them is a leader, and every one a name we have on the record. So the chapter actually pauses to list all 12, tribe by tribe. And this isn't a random scouting party, right? These are the picked men of Israel, right? They've been set apart for this, the best of every tribe. And the names they're worth scanning through, right? So Caleb, son of Jephunneh, from Judah, and from the tribe of Ephraim. Watch over this, Hoshea, the son of Nun. And then the narrator tells us in verse 16 that Moses called Hoshea by another name. See, Hoshea becomes Joshua, right? The Hebrew Yehoshua, the Lord saves. So Moses has just renamed his lieutenant. The man who is going to lead Israel into the land has had his name changed by a meek prophet to a name that means salvation belongs to God. That detail is going to be important when we get to verse 30. Let's continue on verses 17 through 20. And Moses sent them to spy out of the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get ye up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many, and what the land is that they dwell in, and whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds. And what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether there be wood therein or not, and be ye of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first striped grapes. Okay. So Moses gives their spies assignments, and it's worth listening to the questions that he asked them to bring back for answers. What is the land like? Are the people strong or weak? Few or many? What kind of cities do they live in? Fortified or open? What is the soil like? Are there trees? And so notice what isn't in the question list. He doesn't ask whether they should go in, because the decision's already been made. The Lord has already given the land. Moses isn't commissioning a council to debate. He's just commissioning a survey to learn. The going in is settled. But the closing line, be of good courage and bring of the fruit of the land. So bring evidence and bring proof of what God has promised. It's the season of the first striped grapes, right? The early summer harvest. So the land is at its lushest. The conditions are perfect, so they can get a real good reading on this. Okay, let's continue on. We're going to do verses 21 through 25 here. And they went up and searched the land from the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as the men come to Hamath. And they ascended by the south, and came unto Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai, the children of Anak, were. Now Hebron was built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. And they came unto the brook of Eshcol, and cut down from thence a branch from one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between two upon a staff. And they brought of the pomegranates and of the figs. The place was called the brook Eshcol, because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. Spies go up, 40 days, same 40 that will mirror Israel's eventual 40 years, a year for every day of unfaithfulness. So watch how that pattern is being seeded right here, right? They reached the brook of Eshcol. Now the word Eshcol actually means cluster. So they cut down a single cluster or a single Eshcol of grapes, and it's so heavy it has to be carried on a staff between two men. Just picture that. Two grown men, wooden staff between their shoulders, and a cluster of grapes hanging from the middle that is so dense it bends both their backs. And the early Christian and rabbinic readers, they all notice something about this image. See, the staff laid across the two men's shoulder forms an unmistakable shape, and the cluster suspended from it bleeds purple juice when crushed. Now, the early sort of patristic fathers of the church, they read this same typologically. The cluster is Christ on the wood, and the fruit of the land made bitter, so that we might taste, might taste sweet, right? The wine of the new covenant carried out of the land that we couldn't enter on our own. So that's the evidence that the spies bring back. Also, pomegranates and figs in their hands, and the cluster of Eshcol on the staff. The land itself is testifying to what was promised and covenanted by the Lord. Go to 26 through 29. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and to all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran, to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and unto all the congregation, and shewed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sent us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled, and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. So the 12 come back 40 days later. They show Moses and Aaron, the whole congregation, all the fruit that they got, and then they start giving their report. So the structure of that first report, if you paid careful attention, we came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. So far, so good. The promise is true. The land is everything that God said it would be. But then the conjunction, nevertheless. You ever notice how when someone throws a conjunction like a but into a sentence, it's like, let's just negate everything that came before. They're about to do that, right? Now, in the Hebrew, it's ephus, right? It's a word meaning however, but only, right? So here's what the report shifts. The people are strong, the cities are walled and very great, and we saw the children of Anak there. The Amalekites in the south, the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites in the mountains, and the Canaanites by the sea along the Jordan. All that data is true. The land flows with milk and honey, the people are strong, the cities are fortified, the giants are real. I'm not disputing any of those facts. But the report is sliding from data into despair. Like the order of the sentence is doing all this here, right? They led with promise, but they're ending with the obstacle. And the longer they speak, the more weight is on that second half, right? Especially when we go and we look here at verse 30. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. Right? So one verse, one man. And now it's 8 words in Hebrew, but the English is, let us go up once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. So the Hebrew is alo nale, right? Literally means go up, we will go up. And it's what you call an emphatic doubling. So we will absolutely go up. They say thing twice to really give a lot of meaning. If you watch the show Chosen, they made a good point of pointing out the shalom, shalom, right? A perfect peace. And the next you get, ki yakol nakal la, for we are absolutely able for it. So doubled, certainly matched with doubled certainty. Caleb has seen the same land. He cut the grapes from the same vines. He walked past the same Anakim. He has the same information, and his report is only one verse long. Why can Caleb see what others can't? Like, hold that verse back from chapter 12 again. The man Moses was very meek. Caleb has been formed by Moses, and he sees with the eyes of a man who knows the size and stature of God. The size of the giants is exactly the same to Caleb as it is to the 10. So he's not seeing different facts. He's seeing the facts in the right proportions. The giants, yes, they're big, but the God who promised the land is bigger. That's the difference. All right, let's do 31 to 33. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And they saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which came of the giants, and we were in our own sights as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. Caleb is one. The 10 are 10. And then they answer, right? The whole line. And that's that whole first sentence about them, for they are stronger than we, right? It contains their whole pivot. They're comparing the strength of the people of Canaan to their own personal strength, not to God's. I mean, it's a very human math. So for them, the answer is no, let's not do this, right? But then verse 32 calls what they bring back, it's a dibat ha'aretz ra'ah, right? An evil report. So the Hebrew word debau is the same root as the slander Joseph's brother used against him in Genesis 37. So it's not just a wrong report, it's a defamation of the land, right? The land is being slandered here. So the promise is also being slandered. The God of promise is being slandered. And then the sentence, the questions that we told you to watch for earlier, that's verse 33. And then there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which came as giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So if you pay attention to the order there, they were grasshoppers in their own sight first. And then, because they had already become grasshoppers in their own eyes, they assumed that they were grasshoppers in the eyes of giants. That's a profound psychological observation, right? They never asked the giants what the giants thought. They just projected. They had already shrunk themselves so small that they couldn't imagine being seen as anything else. Now, the opposite of meekness isn't pride. The opposite of meekness is exactly this: a self-image so distorted that it can no longer see straight. So Moses was the meekest man on earth. He doesn't see himself as a grasshopper or a giant. He sees himself as God's servant. The 10, they can't do that yet. So they just shrink themselves, and they shrink the world to fit around them. Small men making a small world. That's where the chapter ends here, is on this image, right? Grasshoppers, the land slandered, the promise refused, even before it's attempted. Now, tomorrow we'll watch what happens when the camp chooses to finally believe all the reports here. All right. So let's talk about what has happened here, right? Because this is all our scriptures for today. So let's review everything we went through. So 2 chapters, Miriam and Aaron speaking against Moses, and the narrator inserts the meekness verse. The Lord defends his servant Miriam is stricken. Moses prays for her. The camp waits 7 days for her to be restored. Israel moves to Paran. The 12 spies are chosen, 1 per tribe, and Moses renames Oshea to Joshua. They search the land 40 days, return with a single cluster of grapes carried between the 2 men, and split into 2 reports. The 10 say the obstacles are just too great. We can't overcome them. But Caleb stills the people, right? And he says, we are well able, right? Because he knows what God will do for them. God has promised, so God will deliver. The 10 answer with an evil report. We were grasshoppers, and therefore in their sight, because they are small men thinking small. All right, so what does all this mean here? 3 things that this chapter is doing. First, meekness is not weakness. The narrator uses the strongest possible language for Moses above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. So at the moment Moses is being attacked is when we get that, right? So the structure of chapter 12 is a definition of the term. Meekness is the absence of the inflated self that needs defending. It's not silence under pressure. It's freedom to not need to win. Now, the Lord defends what the meek don't defend in themselves, and that's fine. Second, the meekness of chapter 12 explains the failure of chapter 13. The 10 spies have grown themselves big enough to be threatened by Anakim, right? Like that's the way they're looking at it. So Caleb doesn't have that, all right? That's why you get the same evidence with two different vision systems. So the data didn't determine what they were, the report, right? It was the interior life of the spies that determined the report. Like what you see depends on who you are, and who you are depends on whether you have learned to be a servant or not. And the third thing that these chapters are doing, well, the last chapter ends on a sentence about projection. They saw themselves as grasshoppers, and they assumed the giants saw them that way too. And that's a doctrine of perception. Fear distorts. Self-shrinking shrinks the world, and when we shrink God to the size that we can carry, we discover that we can carry less and less until even what God has plainly given becomes too much for us to even receive. Okay. So what does all this mean for you? Well, there's two things that I'm taking away from this section. The first one is, for anyone who has been spoken against, Numbers 12 is the chapter for the moment, right? Pattern's very straightforward. The meek don't need to defend themselves. They wait, they pray, and they let God adjudicate the outcome. Now, that doesn't mean refusing to speak when speech is required. It just means refusing to speak from your own place of a wounded ego, lashing out, right, an attack. It means refusing to score points. And I know, I've been online doing apologetics and defending the faith, and there are definitely times when I look back and I realize, I think I kind of crossed a line there. I was not being meek. I definitely tried to score points. And, you never get the outcome you want from it. You never feel good from it, right? But every time that you keep that meekness and you're just trying to speak without scoring points, you never feel bad about it. In fact, you get some pretty amazing outcomes. But yeah, the Lord defended Moses. Moses prayed for his sister. Pattern of meekness produces prayer, and it's prayer that can heal. Now, my second takeaway is for anyone standing at the edge of their own personal Canaan that feels too big, right? The question that Numbers 13 asking is not whether the giants are real, because they are real. There are giants in our lives. The question is whose sight you're using to see with. Now, the 10 saw with their own sight, right? But Caleb saw with God's. Same land, same fruit, same fortified cities, but two different ways of looking at the world. So I'm asking myself, where in my life have I been seeing myself as a grasshopper? Where if I decided in advance how much the giants must be seeing me without ever even asking? The opposite of fear is not bravado, it's meekness, right? It's being small enough in yourself that the size of God can come into focus in every aspect of your life. And so tomorrow we're going to read chapter 14, the whole provocation. The night the cap wept and threatened to stone the 4 faithful witnesses, right? Moses' great intercessory prayer. We're going to get the Lord's pardon, and we're also going to get the 40 years wandering in the desert sentence, and the people's last attempt to kind of charge the hill anyway, even after the door was shut to them. It is a very consequential chapter, and a very important one here in the Pentateuch. So the New Testament, you're going to see tomorrow, it just does not let this next chapter go. It holds on to it quite a bit. Now, if you want to go deeper today, this week's deep dive, this article for day 2 is called The Meekness of Moses and the Eye That Sees Aright. And I worked through the whole Hebrew Anav and its appearance across the Pentateuch, the meekness of Christ in Matthew 11, the 10 spies as a study in fear-driven perception, and also the cluster of Eshcol in the early Christian and rabbinic readings. It's a fantastic read. You're going to get a lot out of it. I just know you'll appreciate it. It's got full notes, citations. It's also got discussion questions. So, 1, they just help you think and direct your thoughts, to go through the paper. But 2, if you're a Sunday school teacher, might help you build a lesson. Check it out. Let me know what you think. The link's in the description, so please download it and enjoy. And this week's song is still Rebel Not Neither Fear, right? It's the second verse of the song is the one that's built around today's reading. So give it a listen. See what it kind of inspires in your mind. So It's all about Caleb's courage, Joshua's fire, the cluster of Eshcol, and the 2 against the 10, right? It's already on the YouTube. Even in the links, you can download it on the MP3. So that's all I have for you today. I'll see you back here tomorrow. And until then, as always, I appreciate you all, and thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time to come listen with me.
Hear pulse in the desert thundering.